my alarm was up for 4:00 and it said, GTFU, get the fuck up and crush your day.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to. When I was a teenager, I was paralyzed. In my 20s, I had my injuries. In my 30s, I had my knee rebuilt. In my 40s, I had something that was worse than being paralyzed. I was crippled by fear, pain. I was debilitated, and I had no way that I could think of at that point. It was like the lowest of low. I wasn't sleeping.
Right.
And I noticed that the episodes of pain went from 4 hours or 5 hours to 3 hours to 2 hours to minutes. If you would have said that in 2020, forget what I looked like, I would have been petrified to take a step to push that 400, 500 pound sled. I say that every day. My greatest responsibility is to stay healthy for those who need me. Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Love with Dr. John O'Connor. Today we're going to be talking about regaining your superpower. I'm so excited to have my main man back from his wedding and honeymoon. Matt, welcome back.
Good to be
Congratulations.
back. Thank you.
Let's get after it.
Awesome. So Doc, pre-gaming this podcast got me super hyped, super pumped, just talking about, our childhood with Marvel superheroes. So we're going to dive deep. Let's go right in. When you were at your lowest before Tough Love even came about, beyond you were paralyzed, when you broke your back, very hurt down in the dumps, your comeback came. What made you dig deep and really figure out what your inner superpower was?
You know what? That moment during that time, I think everybody's social media searching time probably 5x'd because we were all stuck home. And I started looking and researching and trying to find ways to get this kryptonite off my back, right? I had always felt like Superman with my strength and my athleticism and my energy. I joke around and would always say to my friends and family that I was Peter Pan, that I was never aging. And I felt like both of them were stripped at once. Yeah. And when I started staring at one of the Instagram feeds that was coming up in Facebook, I kept seeing pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. I started reading on it. And then simultaneously, I started getting into some books and some big wellness gurus that are, some of the top anti-aging, superhuman protocol people preaching about PEMF. And that's pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. I immediately purchased a machine and I was moving, but I was reluctantly moving. I was training, but I was petrified. I was scared. And I needed to change my routines because what my routine was before was, my alarm was up for 4:00 and it said, GTFU, get the fuck up and crush your day.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to. And I didn't want to change the rituals, routines of getting up early. So I had to change how I approached it.
Audible.
And so when I wrote that Audible in my head and it became my script in my Bible, it was get up at 4:30, 4:45, get on the PEMF machine. And the Pulse PEMF product is absolutely amazing. I use the bed, every morning from 4:30 to 5:30 or 5 to 6, as you guys know, because I'm blowing you up at the ass crack of dawn checking in. And I go through it. I go through my meditation. And I started noticing the aches and the stiffness. And as we've gotten better utilizing technology, as in our practice, I can start focusing on areas of pain and treat those areas and really intensify the electromagnetic field going there and take the ache right out of it.
Right.
And, step by step with, my trainer Evie and, my formulation, my anti-aging protocol that I'm on with regards to the peptides and everything that I do, I started feeling me come back. And it wasn't even me. It was an entirely new superhero, if you will.
Inner power.
Yeah. And it really has transformed me. It transforms how I speak to people when they get an injury. And I heard it the other day, like I had met a stranger. We were talking about injuries and older guy was about to have a major surgery and didn't really know him. Knew I was Doc. He's like, Dr. O'Connor, nice to meet you. It was a pleasure. And he was holding his arm. He's like, yeah, I have a shoulder replacement coming this week. And I was like, wow. He's like, I've never looked at a setback and injury as anything other than the next challenge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it felt like, sometimes people are speaking through the voices of angels, right? And it's the truth. Like if every person had that approach depression, anxiety, sadness would be null and void, right? Because you'd literally say, hey, I had a bad day. What did I learn? How do I get better? Right. For me, I know I don't break my rituals and routines with regards to, 7 days a week I'm on PEMF. When I know I'm going to have a hard training day, like I'm filming tomorrow, fitness, those fitness videos, when I think a lot of people ask me, hey, why are you doing that? When I was a teenager, I was paralyzed. In my 20s, I had my injuries. In my 30s, I had my knee rebuilt. In my 40s, I had something that was worse than being paralyzed. I was crippled by fear, pain. I was debilitated, and I had no way that I could think of at that point. It was like the lowest of low. I wasn't sleeping.
Right.
And I needed a comeback, because we talk about the Marvel heroes and the Rockies and this and that.
There's always a comeback.
It was always, getting up after you got knocked down. And I love that. I loved being that person. I love that energy. I loved inspiring somebody and taking a knee in the clinics over the years with a young kid that took an injury and look at him and say, hey, you know what? When I was your age, I was paralyzed. And I would tell my mom every day, and she'd be crying, looking at me, because she's like, I can't believe how brave you are. I'm like, Mom, I'll be better tomorrow.
Right.
And I lost that part of me. And I laugh because, we always talk about supercharging the cells with PEMF, and we speak that language to our patients, and I can feel it. And I get up and I go through my routines, and I look at it like, oh, I'm stiff, no big deal. I'll get through it. I have an ache. I can get through it. And you realize that it's kind of part of the process, right? And, with age comes wisdom, we hope. And I love telling people, I'm like, I think you're going to have some stiffness, and there are days I wake up feeling great. But now that I know that I have the Pulse PEMF technology, that I can have that, the fear is almost gone. I get to the gym, I go through my routines, and I'm getting after it. And those fitness videos that I put out there, and I think one of the things that I want to do, and I was telling my social media team, is really stress the story of the pain. And I want to even start sharing those pictures when I was 180 something pounds. And the scary thing is, like, now I'm ridiculously lean, and I'm in a different fit level, but I was fit then. I was on the basketball court 20 hours a week. I was working out. People say, how many days a week do you work out? I'd start laughing at them. I said, days per week or times per day?
If there were 8, it'd be 8.
Yeah. And it would be 2 or 3 times per day.
Yeah.
And I just kind of always thought it would be that way. And I think that whether you apply that to life, business, or hobby like golf or anything like that, we have to be able to pivot, and we have to know that there's always an opportunity. How many times we have patients calling and we turn into the Alamo of the last resort, and they get the dark news from a surgeon that they're like, you're never going to run again. You're never going to do this. And we just had it today.
Yeah.
And, I always say, I'm like, hey, look, you can always do surgery. Make that your last resort. And the surgeons that I refer to on a regular basis, they lead with that.
Right.
And they earned my respect and trust.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, listen, see us after you've tried everything. If something helps you, God bless you, stay there and stay in that space.
So it makes sense.
Because you found your superpower.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think sharing that story and that conviction, much like we were saying earlier today, I love the victorious testimonials. I love that we sent it out to the social media crew today. We had 30 testimonials. They say, hey, we can only do 20. That's so much filming.
Yeah.
But when you really think about it, that's 30 people's lives. And then by average, if there's 4 people in their immediate family plus there, that's hundreds of people that we gave a human that's near and dear to them that they love.
Yeah.
We gave their life back.
And we're almost just there. They're the ones putting in the time, putting in the effort to get treated, to get better. That's on them.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's a huge win.
So I have to say, from my darkest hour, turning the power back on for me was definitely the Pulse PEMF technology. I'm so excited to be involved with their company, as you know. I tell all the practitioners, I'm like, hey guys, when we're coaching or they're asking, a lot of the younger guys, I'm like, you need to have, some secret weapons up your sleeve that you can really be able to say, hey, listen, there's a reason why this superhuman protocol and all these massive social influencers are going there, and you're seeing all these anti-aging centers pop up because they know it works. Right.
Right.
And maybe like yesterday being with that, the cannabinoid or CBD company, it was amazing, controlling inflammation, feeding your body the right things, hydrating, training, and staying strong. You're going to have aches and pains. Find me a pro athlete. If there weren't aches and pains, the NFL wouldn't fine their players for not showing up for recovery
right
during the week.
Yeah.
And these people make millions of dollars to go out there and be the best athletes in the
That's why
world.
it's mandatory.
Right?
And guys like LeBron James spending $2.5-3 million a year on just recovery. That's everything in and of itself. And with the science, Doc, it's not of, everyone always asks, it's not if it works, it's a when it works. Depending on the onset injury, it takes time. Back when you originally got the PEMF unit started, a lot of people see you as the same version of yourself. You're a different version of you, right? So did you flip the switch and just wake up, new version, let's go? Or was it a day-by-day, step-by-step, hour-by-hour process to get to where you are today?
Fantastic question. It was a process. When, and any of us, right? I tell my patients this all the time, and so many people are fighting battles that you don't know. I think people were so used to me being their rock or somebody they can call when they're having a bad day. And even when I was having the worst day, I would fake it and I would be their rock.
Right.
I would tell you that I was definitely at first skeptical, but I noticed that the episodes of pain went from 4 hours or 5 hours to 3 hours to 2 hours to minutes. And when I was bending and moving and twisting and performing, and now sometimes I look and we saw the ad for Bunker Games, and I didn't realize that was me.
What? I was in a locker room today, and I noticed, and I'm like, I took a double take. I'm like, wait a sec, they paying him for that? No.
Yeah, and I chuckled because I was like, yo, that dude's like jacked. He's moving. I go, oh, wait a minute, I don't do Bunker Games. Well, that's me. And if you would have said that in 2020, forget what I looked like. I would have been petrified to take a step to push that 400, 500 pound sled.
Right.
And now I'm back to the mindset of why not? Do I move safe? Do I think about it? Do I warm up different? Do I cool down different? Yeah. We launched this podcast, Tough Love, about
For a reason.
That our rituals and routines and our consistency, when you listen to the best business coaches, the best influencers, their consistency is amazing, right? Again, my social media team, these guys are young, but their wisdom is beyond their years and age. And I always compliment them because probably one of the best basketball trainers that I ever had the pleasure of being around was a guy by the name of Gannon Baker. And he talks about athletic age. So I think he was referring to LeBron James at the time, was 18 or 19, even Kobe, which were, two players that were arguably greatest of all time in their skill sets, and LeBron's still playing. And at 18, he would say that, he has the mindset of a seasoned pro. And so I think that when you can achieve those kind of things, I think that age is relative. For me, I was talking to one of my favorite people, and they were saying, how come you always refer to yourself as, 49 or 50? I say, I'm proud of it. When I get out there and I get loose and I start moving and I'm on that gym floor, I'm bringing attention in. I know how hard I work to be there, and more importantly, to stay healthy.
Right.
I say that every day. My greatest responsibility is to stay healthy for those who need me. And I know that I would serve and I would be there, in my level of servitude and the desire to provide a valuable service is probably one of my greatest strengths, but what has put me in a situation to want to chase that is feeling the amazing effect of the PEMF and the different modalities within our core four that we marked to be there, and in a smaller level, when I had my microfracture repair about a decade ago on my right knee, we built out our first, amazing facility.
Yeah.
And I was blessed by having a friend, by the name of Michael Rowe, and absolutely a fantastic human. And he gave me insight on Jason Kidd's recovery, who had a microfracture repair.
Right.
And, gave me some names at the time. He was one of the top guys for the New Jersey Nets before they moved to Brooklyn. And I did all the research I could, and I built out our Red Bank facility to emulate that. I did the water rehab. I got the anti-gravity treadmill. I know that was something Kobe was using. So we bought a $50,000 treadmill, and we brought in all that stuff initially for me, but realized, hey, you know what? If I can get back to me, so can you.
Right.
And I think that's why this episode today, for all of our, our followers, and I know my social media team today, was to say, give a shout out. And I believe we have some really super loyal YouTube followers that are on every week. And for all of you guys, I just want to say this. I believe you can go out and just DM into us. We'll come up with a comment at the end, but something along the lines of Freeze Friday. And anybody that reaches out that's on and watching us every week, you'll get a free treatment this Friday or any Friday up to the end of the year.
Yeah.
All right. So I think loyalty, is something that's so important. And, I think that we want to have a value, but I think appreciating that is something that's amazing. I inspired 2 patients the other day, and I ran into a podcast, and the public speaker motivator by the name of John Gordon was absolutely amazing. And I walked into a patient room today with a patient dealing with anxiety, chronic pain, fell off a bike, and he literally put his fist up and goes, 5 Ds. And I chuckled, and Ed Milet, who is just a spiritual man and a wonderful leader and orator, he turns me on to a lot of great things. And I think when you're an academic and you're a healthcare and you have the title of doctor of any type, right? And there's always going to be ugly people out there that say, oh, you're just a GP, or you're just a chiropractor, or you're just a CSCS. Our job is to be a leader, right? And whatever your designation is, I always say, be the best at it, right? And, I compliment you all the time about your respect for your father. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that brought tears to my eyes, and God knows, the world knows how much I love and adore my dad. And you were talking about him having, working at ShopRite and the job and that level of respect. And I was choked up because I always loved, my dad coming home and, being covered with sawdust and being a laborer and worked a hard day, and the look my mom had in her eyes, and she was so proud of him. And to me, it was like he was a cowboy, because when, being a young boy and he had to go out for storm work, you're looking outside and it's like thunder and trees are going down and ripping, and you're so proud of that. And, and that was his superpower. Right. And so for me, I knew getting back to my superpower was getting back to health and then sharing that journey. Right. So I think that's a great question. I think that for me, it was overcoming the fear. It was the rituals and routines, creating them, recreating them, and then consistency of practicing them. I think the one thing I'm learning is in this social media world is the most consistent people are the ones that are crushing it. And sometimes they're funny because they're rhetorical. They'll put it out there and they'll say, so you're still annoyed watching me because you're not doing anything about, well, I could do that too, but you haven't started yet.
Being judgmental, and that's it.
And, you're a critic instead of a person that's a follower and a disciple, and you're following it. And everybody's fitness level is going to be different.
Absolutely.
But no one's ever going to sit there and throw salt at somebody that's doing the work, regardless of their size, shape, color, or otherwise.
No, not at all. And Doc, fueling off of that, what advice would you give any of our listeners, viewers on YouTube, listeners just to the podcast in general, when they're down for the day? They just lose the day. Losses happen, right? What advice would you give them about how to dig deep and find that one superpower to get them back and win the next day?
That's a great question. What I do in those situations is I notice, and I had that day when I really didn't want to bother you yet. On Monday, I said, I'll leave you alone. Yeah. And then Tuesday morning at like 4:30 in the morning, I blew you up because you were just getting back from your honeymoon.
We were ready.
There's always going to be stuff in business for us. It's insurance companies are the ruination of healthcare. Right. And we had a shift with going in network, out of network, whatever it was. And during the administrative process, there were some hiccups. And there was a massive shift, and it affected everything. And you're moving money, and you're trying to figure out how to stay positive, but all of a sudden you're not making payroll, this and that, and it's real. Yeah. And people see and think every doctor is rich, but the reality is it's a business, and the business of healthcare. So immediately I went to like the Alex Hormozy approach, where I said, you know what? Let me reach out to people, and let me not ask people how they're feeling, this and that, but ask how they're doing, and ask about them first. And, what I realized by just practicing that was medicine. That was as valuable as anything that I could do, to make myself feel like, okay, you know what? So you're not on a win streak right now, but all those people, somebody just had back surgery, checking in. A friend reminded me that he was in a back surgery. When you have surgery, you don't sleep. You're hovering. You're in a different mental state. Right. Hit him at 6 a.m. Smiley emoji. Yo, bro, thanks for checking in. I'm doing good. And I reached out to, I don't even know. I felt bad because I think I blew up about 100 people between 5 a.m. and 6:30. And they got back at their normal times. It was,
Uh-huh.
like 8, 10,
Yeah.
noon time,
Our lunchtime.
8 o'clock at night, and, I would say that like, for me, it's getting back to the basics and making someone feel better has always been my best medicine to healing my soul and giving my soul the fire back. Cause a lot of times when you hear people are depressed, they feel lifeless. They feel like they're lost of their why.
They're the only ones in the world. That's it.
It's funny. You asked me that on the motivation and spiritual thing. And when I was prepping today for today's podcast, I thought about something, and I don't know if I'm going to get this out without busting a tear out, but I love me some Eric Thomas, right? And my son knows I'll send him, E.T. or Ray Lewis or Inky Johnson.
I just read UOU.
Yeah. And, probably one of his biggest things that put him on the map was you got to do it as bad as you want to breathe.
Yeah.
And with my father battling emphysema, and he had a really, really rough patch a couple weeks ago, I realized that sentence sounded good and it was grimy to me. Like, it had this powerful thing, but didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But as I look at my first superhero, and that's my father, and I can hear in his voice, and he's always been a stoic, prideful man. And he's just getting through his day and he's battling out and he doesn't complain and he doesn't show any fear. He's not scared. Now, when you say as bad as you want to breathe, I get it. I never really got it before. Because if my dad had one wish, he would just want to be able to breathe like anybody else.
Right.
And I can't give that to him. I can just be around him to support him. And again, as a wingman, as a support guy, I always tell people, I'm like, hey, I might be the boss, but my job, what I want to do is be the best helper. And I might be a little intense and I have that stoic nature. So I know I'm scaring one of our young physical therapists right now. I was like, hey, listen, you think I'm intense, but I literally just told you, make sure you eat lunch, make sure you're drinking water, this and that. But it may sound like I'm barking, but that's just the nature of me.
Yeah.
But know that that's me caring and really wanting to make sure that all my team and everybody around me, we're taken care of.
It's all working as a team. If
That's
one teammate's down, the others pick them
step up.
Going back to Eric Thomas, how his wife got diagnosed with MS. She was a full-time nurse, loved it, couldn't work anymore. Down in the dumps, what does he do? Travel every single day all over the country, preaching, speaking to underprivileged kids, juveniles, pump them up, get them ready for life. And I feel the biggest message that you can give our listeners, Doc, is what would you tell them if they know someone who's down in the dumps, how to handle that situation? What do they say to that person? What's their gesture? How do they handle that situation?
I think when you touched this earlier, it's a testimony. And you have to relate to them because they'll see you in your nice gear, your clothes, or your fitness, your body, and you got to show them the realness. You got to let them know, like, ET always goes to, I ate out of garbage cans. I slept outside.
Yeah.
I slept in abandoned buildings. And you don't realize, like, as me as a basketball trainer, as a coach, I have always brought that every single day. And I've never experienced that type of hardship. Yes, if I experienced it with, like, what he's dealing with his wife, where I was paralyzed and I fractured my skull, I had my knee rebuilt, and I'm still coming. Yeah. Right. And I feel like when you can inspire them, say, until my last breath, I'm coming.
Yeah.
And I think, it's like, I think that's what they got to feel, And when you can drive that home where they can feel that, like their arm hair goes up and you're like, I'll fight for that.
Yeah.
And I'll say in that moment, no, you got to fight for you. And just know, like, I'm a phone call away. I'm a text away.
Right.
I'm a visit away. And regardless, that's where that healing power comes from. And I think you have to drive that home. And I think when you live that testimony and you bring it every single day, and there's always going to be darkness in everybody's lives.
Absolutely.
Right. Every decade, somebody's closer to dying. Every decade, your life is changing. We're aging. What we used to do, we can't do. And you have to celebrate what you can do. And I think too many people get caught thinking about what they used to be, what they used to do, what they used to make.
Currently can't do.
And what they can't do as opposed to celebrating what they can.
Absolutely. And
so again, it's, it's testimonies, and I think that, that's one thing that speaking group does amazing.
Yeah.
And I would say that, like, more people have to listen to that.
Right.
More people have to hear that pain and understand they used pain as it wasn't a loss. It was education. And even when, somebody's wife or significant other or family member gets sick, it's, how can I help somebody else to tell them don't pick up a cigarette? Or, hey, you know what? MS isn't a death sentence.
Right.
You know, you can do this and that.
Put
you know,
that
nutrition.
alcohol down.
Yeah.
Let's help you. We can get better.
Yeah.
You have a roof over your head. You'll be okay.
That's it. And I think that when you can do that and then share some realness, then you have their attention. And that's always been something that's always been my, you know, secret sauce, if you will, when I'm speaking to patients and like, you what? You did what? And I remember watching Roadhouse on a rerun, and Patrick Swayze was getting stitched up in the hospital. I was like, I think I can go toe to toe with him when he had his surgery card. I was like, I don't know if I feel good about that or not, but I think it's a super important part of me to share that, like, hey, you know what? You get one life. You get, you know, and I always say this, and it's probably kind of like, you know, I always hear Ed Milet when you say like that, you know, I'm going to plug my book 150 times, but it's the truth. You get one life. And I don't think any of the younger population thinks about that unless it's something's really hit them hard when they're young and they take for granted what that means. But when you realize you get one time around this planet and you want to live every day like you're in the, you know, game 7 of the world championship, and you're up at the plate, you're going for the fences. You're doing whatever you can do to bring home the pennant. And I think when you take that approach, you're in a way better situation. So I hope that's something the viewers can get their head around. I know talking about it, it was amazing. I made through that stretch of time without breaking down. Yeah. But I think that that's important. And I think when people are offering advice and they know someone's going through a dark time, help them. Share something you went through. And when you find that commonality, I think that's when the medicine is really the best form.
Send them a text, buy them a coffee, say, this one's on me. Hope you have a better day. And that's the benefit of working beside you in healthcare, Doc. Everyone sees the outside of us, right? We all have bad days too, but working alongside you in the healthcare setting, our biggest message is we're here for you. You'll be okay. You have a bad day physically, mentally. It's all right. There's a million other days. You live, you move on. But I'm amped up after this, Doc. This gets me ready to win the week, win the month, win the year.
Awesome. Listen, thank you so much. I think today's podcast was really about regaining your superpower, the power for us, the power of PEMF technology, pulse electromagnetic field technology. I'm thankful that, you know, Pulse PEMF is a company that supports us in everything we do. We make it a point to get it out there on social media. I know that I plague the world, you know, with the 430 Club. I think I see Mark Wahlberg post and then my stuff goes out right behind his. And I think that the importance of being up early in your rituals, routines, and showing people that it's out there and just telling people, hey, it's just not me. That's why I make sure I tag these people that are out there. So you see, you're like, wow, this isn't hocus pocus. Like, this is real technology.
We're not just talking about it.
Yeah. People are living it and doing it and experiences and having these great transformations. And I thank God every day, and I'm grateful every day, and take a knee to say, thank God I found it. Thank God it helped me. And, you know, if we can turn it on to other people, then I hope they have that same experience. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. Guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, please follow us on any of our platforms. Today was an amazing podcast, I feel. And if you feel so too, please share it. And we look forward to seeing you guys again. God bless.